The transporter beam felt wrong from the first microsecond. Matt Murdock had never experienced molecular transport before. Being disassembled atom by atom wasn't exactly a common occurrence in Hell's Kitchen. But some primal instinct screamed that the humming energy surrounding him was behaving in ways it shouldn't. The sensation was like being pulled through water that suddenly turned to ice, then fire, then something that had no earthly comparison. His enhanced senses, usually so reliable, stuttered and scrambled as chronoton particles he had no name for cascaded through his nervous system. Then came the fall. Matt hit concrete hard, his body remembering to roll even as his radar sense exploded back online in a disorienting rush. He lay still for 3 seconds, cataloging damage. Bruised ribs, scraped palms, ringing in his ears that would fade, and gathering sensory data about wherever the hell he just landed. The city breathed around him, but it was breathing wrong. The traffic patterns were off. The electrical hum in the wires overhead pitched differently than modern infrastructure. No smartphones chirping their constant digital symphony. The vehicles passing 6 blocks away rumbled with internal combustion engines that hadn't been common in New York for years. And the smells, God, the smells. Unwashed bodies, desperation, the particular sourness of a city that had given up on entire neighborhoods. Matt pushed himself to his feet, extending his radar sense in an expanding sphere. He was in an alley, surrounded by chain-link fence. Beyond it, he could sense a massive urban area, but the architecture felt simultaneously familiar and alien. The buildings were wrong, the street layout not quite matching any city he knew, and everywhere, the sound of misery. Crying children, coughing from diseased lungs, arguments in a dozen languages. "Hey, you okay?" A voice, male, approaching from his left. Matt turned, tracking the heartbeat, elevated, nervous, but not hostile. "I'm fine," Matt said automatically, then registered what he must look like. A man in dark clothing with what felt like dried blood on his temple, standing in an alley looking confused. "Where am I?" "Sanctuary District A, San Francisco." The man's heartbeat jumped. "You're not a dim, are you? You just got processed?" Sanctuary District. The term meant nothing to Matt, but the man's fear when asking if he was a dim told him volumes. Processing suggested intake, like a prison or camp. San Francisco was 3,000 miles from New York, and he'd been in Hell's Kitchen 30 seconds ago. "What year is it?" Matt asked, and immediately regretted the question when the man's heartbeat spiked into genuine alarm. 2024, man. September 1st. Are you okay? Did you hit your head or something?" Matt's mind raced. He'd been in 2015, or had it been 2016? Time got fuzzy when you spent your nights getting hit in the head by criminals. But this wasn't time travel. Time travel was science fiction, comic book nonsense, not something that actually happened to people. Except he was standing in San Francisco in a sanctuary district that definitely didn't exist in any version of 2024 he knew. And that transporter beam. The transporter beam. The humming energy. The wrongness. "I need to understand what's happening here," Matt said carefully. "What is a sanctuary district?" The man laughed, bitter and broken. "Where you been, man? Sanctuary districts are where they put us. The gimmies, unemployed, no home, no credits. Government decided we were too much of a problem, so they rounded us up, stuck us in these camps, and forgot about us. You really don't know? What, did you just drop out of the sky?" Yes, Matt thought, exactly that. "Something like that," he said. "I'm Matt." "BC." The man stepped closer, Matt could sense him studying his face. "You're wearing a mask, and you're blind, aren't you? The way you don't quite track faces." "I manage," Matt said. "BC, I need you to tell me everything about this place, and I need to know if anything strange has happened recently. People appearing who don't belong here, technology that seems advanced, anything unusual." BC's heartbeat did something interesting, a skip of recognition. "There were 2 guys checked in yesterday. Docs say they're okay, but they've been asking weird questions. Real interested in the date, the political situation, like they've been under a rock for years. One of them's got this look in his eyes like he knows something bad's coming." Matt's enhanced hearing picked up approaching footsteps. Multiple people, purposeful strides. His radar sense painted the picture. 6 individuals in some kind of uniform, carrying weapons. The fence around the sanctuary wasn't to keep people out. "Security?" Matt asked. "Stay away from them," BC warned. "They process you, you're stuck here. And trust me, man, you don't want to be stuck here. This place is a powder keg." Matt could sense that truth in the district around him. Thousands of heartbeats, most elevated with stress, anger, fear. The desperation was a living thing, pressing against the fences, building pressure. He'd felt it before in the worst parts of Hell's Kitchen, but never at this scale, never this concentrated. "Take me to those 2 men," Matt said, "the ones asking questions." "Why?" "Because I think they're the reason I'm here, and I think we're all running out of time." BC's silence stretched for 3 seconds. Then, "Follow me. Stay close, keep your head down, and for God's sake, don't let security scan you. Once you're in the system, you're a ghost. You disappear." As Matt followed BC deeper into Sanctuary District A, his radar sense mapping a nightmare of chain-link corridors and overcrowded shelters. He understood with perfect clarity that he'd been transported not just across space, but through time. And whatever had brought him here, whoever those 2 men were, they were connected to something far bigger than a simple transporter malfunction. The devil of Hell's Kitchen had arrived in a different kind of hell entirely. One where the law had already failed, where society had abandoned its most vulnerable, and where his every instinct to fight injustice might be exactly the wrong thing to do. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Matt's enhanced hearing picked up a conversation 6 buildings away, 2 voices speaking in urgent, hushed tones about temporal displacement and preserving the timeline. His jaw tightened. Whatever was coming, he was going to need answers fast. And in his experience, the truth was usually buried in the places people tried hardest to hide it. The Sanctuary District sprawled before Matt's radar sense, like a 3-dimensional map of human suffering. BC led him through a maze of chain-link corridors that divided the camp into sectors, each one packed with people whose heartbeats told stories of exhaustion, illness, and barely suppressed rage. The infrastructure was minimal. Portable toilets, communal water stations, prefabricated shelters that did nothing to muffle the sounds of crying children and arguments over sleeping space. "Processing centers that way," BC said, gesturing. "Try to avoid it. Once they scan your ID, you're in the system. No ID, they give you one. Either way, you're officially a ghost. Society stops seeing you." Matt's radar sense tracked the building BC indicated. Reinforced walls, electronic locks, guards with weapons. A prison by any other name. "How many people are in here?" "District A? Maybe 10,000. They've got districts in every major city now. Started 5 years ago when the economy really tanked. Government said it was temporary assistance, help people get back on their feet. BC's laugh was acid. Turns out when you put walls around people and stop pretending they exist, it's real easy to forget about them. The legal framework assembled itself in Matt's mind with practiced efficiency. Internment camps for the unemployed. No due process, no legal representation, no path out. Everything he'd dedicated his life to defending, constitutional rights, equal protection, human dignity, had been systematically dismantled. And if this was really 2024, it had happened gradually enough that society had simply accepted it. There are laws against this, Matt said. Habeas corpus, due process rights. Laws are for people with lawyers, BC interrupted. For people who matter. We're gimmies, man. We don't matter anymore. They passed a group of children playing with a deflated ball, their laughter jarringly normal against the backdrop of despair. An elderly woman sat against a fence, muttering to herself. Two men argued over a transistor radio, the only source of news from the outside world. Matt's enhanced hearing caught fragments. Stock market rally, unemployment at 20%. Senator praising sanctuary program for reducing crime. BC, a woman's voice calling from ahead. Matt sensed her approaching. Fast heartbeat, quick movements. You find any food? Not yet, Lee, but I found something else. This is Matt. Just arrived. Doesn't know the score yet. Lee's heartbeat was strong, determined. Matt could sense her sizing him up, noting the mask, the defensive posture. Another dim? I'm a lawyer, Matt said, and immediately regretted it when both their heartbeats jumped with something between hope and bitter amusement. A lawyer, Lee repeated slowly. In here, that's rich. It's complicated, Matt admitted. I'm trying to understand what's happening here. BC mentioned two men asking unusual questions. I need to find them. Webb and Gabriel? Lee's tone shifted to protective. They're good people, trying to help organize things, keep people safe. We've got maybe 48 hours before this whole place explodes. Matt's attention sharpened. What happens in 48 hours? BC and Lee exchanged a look that Matt couldn't see but could sense in the sudden tension of their bodies. Everyone can feel it, BC said quietly. Something's building. The overcrowding, the lack of medical care, the guards treating us like animals. People are talking about taking action, taking hostages maybe, forcing the city to pay attention. A riot. Matt had responded to enough civil unrest in Hell's Kitchen to recognize the warning signs. And BC was right. The sanctuary district thrummed with pre-violence energy. Thousands of desperate people compressed into an unsustainable space. Dignity stripped away, hope extinguished. Violence wasn't a possibility. It was inevitable. Where are Webb and Gabriel? Matt asked. Processing center, Lee said. They've been trying to get access to the communication systems. Talk to someone on the outside who'll listen. Good luck with that. Matt's radar sense painted the route through the district. 300 yards, multiple checkpoints. Security presence increasing near the processing center. Take me there. You're serious about this? BC asked. Man, those two are probably going to be at the center of whatever goes down. You want to stay far away from them. I can't explain it, Matt said. But I think they're why I'm here. And if there's going to be violence, maybe I can help prevent it. Or maybe I'm here to ensure it happens, a darker voice whispered in his mind. The thought made no sense, but the wrongness of that transporter beam, the temporal displacement he'd felt. He was here for a reason, and he had a sinking feeling that the reason wasn't going to align with his usual mission of protecting the innocent. They navigated deeper into the district, and Matt's enhanced senses built a portrait of a society in collapse. He could hear a doctor in a makeshift clinic telling a patient they had no antibiotics left. A mother singing a lullaby to quiet her hungry children. A group of young men planning something violent in hushed, angry voices. The sanctuary district was a microcosm of system failure, and every heartbeat he tracked was a person the law had failed. "There," Lee said, pointing ahead. "Processing center. Webb and Gabriel are usually around the comm terminal, trying to get messages out." Matt's radar sense found them immediately. Two men, one with an unusual confidence in his bearing despite the circumstances, the other moving with a precision that suggested medical training. But it was what his enhanced hearing picked up that confirmed his suspicion. "Can't risk changing anything," the confident one was saying, voice low. "Every action we take has to preserve the timeline. If Bell doesn't make his sacrifice..." "I know, Commander," the other interrupted. "But watching these people suffer when we have the knowledge to help them, it's torture." "Commander, timeline, sacrifice." The words assembled into an impossible picture. "Those aren't residents," Matt said quietly. "They're time travelers." BC stared at him. "What?" "I don't know how I know that," Matt admitted. "But I do. And I think that transporter beam that brought me here was connected to whatever brought them." "Transporter beam," Lee repeated flatly. "Okay. So we've got a blind lawyer who thinks he was beamed here by time travelers. Maybe you should talk to the Dims after all." But BC's hand on Matt's arm was tight. The way they talk about the date, like it's important. The way Gabriel, or Webb, whichever one he really is, keeps checking like he's waiting for something specific to happen. What if he's right, Lee? Matt extended his radar sense toward the two men, and his enhanced hearing focused on their conversation. They were discussing something called the Bell Riots, a historical event that had to happen exactly as recorded. And one of them, the one they were calling Gabriel, wasn't supposed to be here at all. He was replacing someone, playing a role, ensuring history unfolded correctly. "They're going to let people die," Matt said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "They know what's coming, and they're going to let it happen because changing it would alter history." "That's insane," Lee said. "No," Matt replied, his voice hollow. "It's logical. If they're really from the future, if they've traveled back to this moment, then they know how this ends. And they can't change it without risking everything that comes after. Including," Matt realized with growing horror, "whatever future these men came from. A future that might be better than this hellhole." Matt approached the two men with BC and Lee flanking him, his radar sense tracking every micro-expression, every shift in stance. The one they called Gabriel stood with a military bearing that suggested command experience, despite wearing the same shabby clothing as every other sanctuary resident. The other, younger, moving with a doctor's careful efficiency, was checking the vitals of an elderly man near the comm terminal. "Webb, Gabriel," BC called out. "Got someone who needs to talk to you." Both men turned, and Matt's enhanced hearing caught the subtle hitch in their breathing, the spike in heart rates. They recognized something was different about him. The mask, probably. Or the way he moved, the coiled readiness of someone trained in combat. "Who's your friend?" Gabriel asked, his voice carrying an unmistakable note of authority, poorly disguised as casual curiosity. "Matt Murdock," Matt said, extending his hand. "I'm a lawyer from New York, and I think we need to have a very honest conversation about who you really are and what's about to happen here." Gabriel's heartbeat jumped, just for a moment, before settling into a controlled rhythm. The doctor's hand moved subtly toward his waist, where Matt's radar sense detected something that wasn't quite right. A device too advanced for 2024 technology, shaped like a medical tricorder from science fiction. "I don't know what you mean," Gabriel said carefully. "We're just residents like everyone else, trying to survive until the riots begin," Matt interrupted. "Until Gabriel Bell makes his sacrifice and 350 people die. And the world finally wakes up to what it's done to its most vulnerable citizens. Until history unfolds exactly as it's supposed to, regardless of the cost in human lives." The silence stretched for 3 seconds. Lee and BC stood frozen, processing the implications. The doctor, Matt's enhanced senses told him the man was in his mid-30s, fit, with a slight accent that suggested British medical training, exchanged a glance with Gabriel that spoke volumes. "Who are you, really?" Gabriel asked, his voice dropping an octave, command presence bleeding through. "And how do you know about the timeline?" "I'm exactly who I said. A lawyer who fights for people the system has forgotten. As for how I know," Matt tapped his temple. "Enhanced senses. I can hear things others can't, including conversations about temporal displacement and preserving historical events. I was caught in something, some kind of energy beam, and now I'm here in 2024 instead of 2015. So let's drop the pretense. You're from the future. You're here because of a transporter accident, and you're trying to ensure this disaster happens exactly as history records." Gabriel studied him for a long moment, and Matt could sense the man's mind working through scenarios, calculating risks. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Somewhere private. Now." They moved to a corner of the processing center, away from prying ears. BC and Lee followed, and Gabriel didn't stop them. The timeline was already contaminated by Matt's presence. A few more witnesses hardly mattered. "Commander Benjamin Sisko," Gabriel said quietly. "Commanding Officer, Deep Space Nine. And this is Dr. Julian Bashir. We're from the year 2372. A transporter malfunction involving chronoton particles sent us back to 2024, 3 days before the Bell riots begin. And you were caught in the same displacement field," Bashir added, studying Matt with clinical interest. "The chronoton surge must have created a temporal vortex that pulled you from your own time. Your enhanced senses. May I ask the nature of them?" "Accident as a child?" Matt said tersely. "Radioactive material. It took my sight but enhanced everything else. I can hear heartbeats, sense movements, detect lies. And right now, Commander, I can tell you're carrying the weight of command decisions you wish you didn't have to make." Sisko's jaw tightened. 3 days from now, residents of this sanctuary district will take hostages in the processing center. A man named Gabriel Bell will die protecting those hostages, giving his life to end the standoff peacefully. His sacrifice will shock the world, force society to confront what it's done. The sanctuary districts will be dismantled. It's a turning point in human history, the beginning of the path that leads to the Federation, to the elimination of poverty and war, to humanity reaching the stars. "And if it doesn't happen?" Matt asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then everything changes," Bashir said quietly. "The Federation might never form. Billions of lives across hundreds of worlds might never be saved. First, contact with the Vulcans could be delayed or prevented entirely. The timeline we come from, a future where humanity has evolved beyond prejudice, scarcity, and war, might cease to exist." Matt's Catholic guilt twisted in his chest. So you're telling me that 350 people have to die for humanity to achieve paradise? That we have to allow this injustice to create justice? Yes, Cisco said, and his heartbeat carried the burden of that single word. And it gets worse. The real Gabriel Bell died yesterday, killed in a fight that should never have happened. I'm taking his place. I have to ensure his actions happen exactly as history records, even though I'm not him. That's why you're so worried, Matt said. You're not just observing history, you're performing it. One wrong move and everything unravels. BC's voice cut through the tension. You're telling us that all of this, the camps, the suffering, the deaths that are coming, they're necessary? That we're just sacrifices for some better future we'll never see? I know how it sounds, Cisco said, and Matt could hear genuine anguish in his voice. I've commanded a space station in the middle of a war. I've made decisions that cost lives. But this, watching people suffer when I have the knowledge to prevent it, knowing I can't act, this is torture, and I'm so sorry. Lee's heartbeat was pure fury. Sorry doesn't feed my kids. Sorry doesn't give us back our dignity. No, Cisco agreed. But 350 deaths here prevent millions more. The sanctuary districts spread across America, then globally. Without the Bell riots to expose the system's cruelty, they become permanent. The social collapse accelerates. Humanity doesn't reach the stars, it barely survives the next century. Matt's radar sense tracked the district around them. 10,000 desperate people, invisible to the society that had abandoned them. And in 3 days, 350 of them would die to shock that society awake. The math was brutal, utilitarian, and absolutely clear. It was also everything Matt Murdock had spent his life fighting against. There has to be another way, Matt said. I'm a lawyer. I defend the innocent. I can't just stand by and watch people die. Neither can I, Bashir said. But the Temporal Prime Directive exists for a reason. We cannot change established historical events without risking catastrophic timeline alterations. The Temporal Prime Directive, Matt repeated. Is that what lets you sleep at night? A regulation that says it's acceptable to watch innocents suffer? Cisco's hand shot out, gripping Matt's shoulder. The contact was firm, commanding. Listen to me, counselor. I don't expect you to understand. I don't expect you to forgive us. But I need you to trust that this decision was made by people who've seen the alternative. I fought the Dominion, a totalitarian empire that enslaves entire species. That war cost millions of lives, but we won because the Federation existed, because humanity had evolved to value diversity and cooperation. None of that happens if we change what's coming. Matt pulled away, his enhanced senses painting a picture of Cisco's resolve, Bashir's torment, BC's confusion, Lee's rage, and beneath it all, the ticking clock. 3 days until the powder keg exploded. You said Gabriel Bell dies protecting hostages, Matt said slowly. That his sacrifice ends the standoff peacefully. What if I could ensure that happens without 350 deaths? What if we could minimize the casualties while preserving the historical impact? The timeline is specific, Bashir warned. Bell's death, the hostage situation, the media coverage, it all has to happen in a particular way. But the number of casualties isn't carved in stone, Matt pressed. History remembers Bell's sacrifice and the riot's impact. It doesn't require every single death to be identical. If I can use my skills to protect people, to reduce the body count without changing the outcome, would that preserve your timeline? Cisco and Bashir exchanged a long look. and Matt could hear their silent communication in the rhythm of their breathing. The micro shifts in posture. "It's risky," Cisco said finally. "But Murdoch's right. The historical records focus on Bell's actions and the riot's political impact, not precise casualty figures. If we can preserve the key events while minimizing deaths..." He paused. "It might work, but it would require perfect timing and coordination." "Then we have 3 days to plan," Matt said. 3 days to figure out how to satisfy history's demands while saving every life we can. "I came here for a reason, Commander. Maybe this is it." Cisco's hand extended again, this time in partnership. "Welcome to the worst assignment in Starfleet, Counselor. Let's try to make history a little less bloody." As Matt shook the commander's hand, his enhanced hearing picked up distant sirens, angry voices, the sound of a society's conscience beginning to stir. The devil of Hell's Kitchen had found his mission in this temporal nightmare: defend the innocent, even when history demanded they suffer. It was going to be the hardest case of his life. Cisco led them to a more secure location, a storage room in the processing center's basement, where the sounds of the sanctuary district faded to a dull roar against Matt's enhanced hearing. Bashir swept the room with his medical tricorder, checking for surveillance devices with technology 3 centuries ahead of 2024's primitive systems. "We're clear," Bashir confirmed. "No listening devices, no cameras. We can speak freely." Matt's radar sense mapped the space. 12 feet by 12 feet, metal shelving units filled with supplies, a single door that Cisco had locked behind them. BC and Lee stood against the far wall, still processing the revelation that they were standing with time travelers from a utopian future. "The Temporal Prime Directive," Cisco began, his voice carrying the weight of command briefings delivered 1,000 times before, "is the Federation's most sacred temporal law. It states that Starfleet personnel may not interfere with the normal development of any society, and that includes Earth's past. Time travel is heavily regulated, and altering established historical events is forbidden under penalty of court-martial and imprisonment." "Sounds like your Prime Directive," Matt said, "the one about not interfering with developing civilizations." Cisco's heartbeat jumped slightly. "You know about that?" "I know science fiction," Matt replied. "Star Trek, but I'm guessing in your timeline, it's not fiction." "No," Cisco said quietly. "In our timeline, humanity reached the stars because we learned from our mistakes. And the Bell Riots are one of the most critical learning moments in our history. They're taught in every school on Earth, remembered as the day humanity finally confronted its conscience." Bashir pulled up a chair, gesturing for the others to sit. Matt remained standing, his enhanced senses tracking the building above them. Security guards making rounds, residents arguing over dwindling food supplies, children crying from hunger. "The historical records are specific," Bashir explained. "September 3rd, 2024. A group of Sanctuary District residents, led by Gabriel Bell, take hostages in the processing center to force the government to negotiate. The standoff lasts approximately 48 hours. During that time, media coverage brings the sanctuary districts into living rooms across America. People see the faces of those they've forgotten, hear their stories, realize the system has failed catastrophically. And Bell dies protecting the hostages from security forces." Matt finished. "His sacrifice convinces the hostage takers to surrender peacefully, but not before 350 people are killed in the initial riot and the standoff." "Exactly," Cisco said. "Within 6 months, the sanctuary districts are dismantled. Social reform movements gain momentum. It's the beginning of Earth's path toward the post-scarcity society that eventually forms the Federation. Without the Bell Riots, that path becomes much longer, much bloodier, or doesn't happen at all. Matt's jaw tightened. You're asking me to accept that those 350 deaths are acceptable losses? That the ends justify the means? I'm asking you to understand that changing those deaths might cost billions more, Sisko countered. I don't like it either, Counselor. I spent my career defending Federation principles. Principles that say every life has value, that we don't sacrifice individuals for the collective good. But temporal mechanics don't care about our principles. The timeline is what it is. Temporal mechanics, Matt repeated. You can measure the ripple effects of changing history? Not precisely, Bashir admitted. But we know that major historical events create temporal junctures, points where the timeline can branch in dramatically different directions. The Bell Riots are one of those junctures. Change them significantly, and the cascade effects are unpredictable. Earth might experience a longer period of social collapse. The eugenics wars might unfold differently. First contact with the Vulcans could be delayed by decades or prevented entirely. The eugenics wars, BC interrupted. Those happened in the 1990s. Khan Noonien Singh genetically engineered supermen, millions dead. Sisko and Bashir exchanged a glance that Matt's enhanced senses caught immediately. Surprise mixed with careful recalibration. The historical records from this era are incomplete, Sisko said diplomatically. The exact dates and details of the eugenics wars are unclear in our databases. But yes, genetic engineering created significant problems in Earth's late 20th century. Matt filed that information away. Temporal travelers from the 24th century had imperfect knowledge of their own past, which meant the timeline was more fragile than they wanted to admit. Every gap in their historical records was a potential vulnerability, a place where changes might go undetected until it was too late. Let me understand the moral calculus, Matt said. You're arguing that I should accept 350 deaths now to prevent potentially billions later. That's classic utilitarian ethics. Maximize overall welfare, accept individual suffering for collective good. But it requires absolute certainty about the consequences. How certain are you that changing the Bell Riots would doom your timeline? Bashir hesitated. Not absolutely certain, but the temporal mechanics models suggest, Matt pounced. Not guarantee. You're making a life and death decision based on models and incomplete historical records. That's not certainty, Commander. That's educated guessing. Sisko's posture shifted, the commander recognizing a skilled cross-examination. You're right. We can't be absolutely certain. But when the stakes are the entire future of humanity, we have to err on the side of caution. Would you risk billions to save hundreds? I'd look for the third option, Matt shot back. I'm a defense attorney. I've built my career on finding solutions others miss, protecting the innocent when the system says they're expendable. You're presenting a false binary. Change nothing and let 350 die, or change everything and risk catastrophic consequences. But what if we can thread the needle? Preserve the key historical elements: Bell's sacrifice, the media coverage, the political impact, while reducing casualties? Lee's voice cut through the tension. You're talking about us like we're chess pieces. Numbers in your equations. We're people. I have children in this district. BC has friends who won't survive what's coming. And you're standing here debating probability models while we're trying to figure out how to eat tomorrow. The silence that followed was profound. Matt could hear Cisco's breathing change, the commander's heartbeat carrying genuine shame. Bashir's hands clenched and unclenched, the doctor's Hippocratic oath warring with his Starfleet duty. "You're absolutely right," Cisco said quietly. "And I apologize. We've been so focused on preserving the timeline that we've forgotten the people living it. That's inexcusable. But it doesn't change the fundamental problem," Bashir added. "The Bell riots have to happen. Gabriel Bell has to die. The Sanctuary District residents have to take hostages. The media coverage has to shock America's conscience. Those are the fixed points. Everything else is potentially negotiable." Matt's enhanced hearing tracked activity above them, security presence increasing, residents gathering in larger groups, the pressure building toward its inevitable release. 3 days. They had 3 days to figure out how to satisfy history's demands while defending the people history had marked for sacrifice. "Tell me exactly what the historical records say," Matt demanded. "Every detail you know about how the riots unfold. Who takes hostages, where they take them, how security responds when Bell dies. I need to understand the timeline's requirements before I can figure out how to work within them." Cisco pulled out a PAD, a slim device that looked like advanced technology disguised as primitive electronics. He called up files, and Matt could hear the electronic hum of data processing. "September 3rd, approximately 1400 hours. Cisco read. "Riot begins when Sanctuary residents storm the processing center demanding negotiations with city officials. Multiple hostages taken, including city employees and visiting journalists. Gabriel Bell emerges as the leader who keeps the hostage takers organized and prevents violence against the captives." "Visiting journalists," Matt interrupted. "That's the key to the media coverage. Without journalists inside, the story doesn't get told the way history needs." "Exactly," Bashir confirmed. The journalists' first-hand accounts of Bell's compassion, of the residents' desperation, of the system's failure. Those accounts change public opinion. But they're only there because they were doing a story on the Sanctuary districts when the riot erupted. "Which means we can't prevent the riot," Matt said. "We can't evacuate the journalists. We can't even warn them. The timeline requires them to be trapped inside." "Yes," Cisco said heavily. "And it requires Bell to protect them, to demonstrate that the Sanctuary residents aren't monsters. They're desperate people pushed beyond their limits. His humanity in the midst of chaos is what makes his sacrifice meaningful." Matt's radar sense painted a picture of the processing center above them. 2 floors, multiple rooms, dozens of potential hostages. The geometry of the standoff was already taking shape in his mind. Choke points, defensible positions, sight lines for security forces. "The 350 casualties," Matt said. "When do they occur? Initial riot or throughout the standoff?" "Historical records aren't specific," Bashir admitted. "Some during the initial riot. Security opens fire on protesters. More during the standoff itself, riots spreading to other parts of the district, inadequate medical care for the injured, security response escalating. The exact sequence is unclear." "Which gives us room to maneuver," Matt said. "If the records don't specify exactly when and how people die, we can potentially reduce casualties without triggering timeline alarms. Fewer deaths in the initial riot, better triage during the standoff. Negotiated surrender instead of forced extraction, while ensuring Bell still dies, as history requires," Cisco added. And the weight of that statement settled over the room like a shroud. BC's voice was hollow. "You're planning his death. Gabriel, or whoever he really is. You're planning to let him die to satisfy your timeline. I'm planning to take his place, Cisco corrected. The real Gabriel Bell died yesterday in a fight. I've assumed his identity to ensure his historical actions still occur. And yes, I'm planning to die protecting hostages, if that's what the timeline demands. But I'm hoping Murdoch's skills can find a way to preserve the essential elements while minimizing the body count. Matt's enhanced senses detected the truth in Cisco's heartbeat. The commander meant every word. He was prepared to sacrifice himself for a future he believed in, even knowing he might never return to it. It was the kind of selfless courage Matt recognized in the best first responders, the firefighters who ran into burning buildings knowing they might not come out. I need to understand the Sanctuary District's layout, Matt said, shifting into tactical mode. Every entrance, every choke point, every potential flashpoint. I need to know who the likely riot leaders are, the people who'll push for violence, the ones who'll advocate for negotiation. And I need to know exactly where security will respond and how they'll escalate. I can help with that, Lee said. I've been here 6 months. I know the people, know the tensions. There's a group led by a man named BC. Not this BC, different guy, who's been talking about taking action for weeks. He's got maybe 30 followers, all young men with nothing to lose. There'll be the initial surge, Matt predicted. The ones who storm the processing center. We need to channel that energy, direct it toward taking hostages without killing anyone. Once the journalists are captured and Bell establishes control, the situation stabilizes into a standoff instead of a massacre. And during that standoff, I negotiate, Cisco said. I keep the hostage takers calm, keep the hostages safe, and buy time for media coverage to do its work. The longer we hold out, the more impact the story has. While I work the margins, Matt finished, I'll be outside the processing center during the initial riot, using my abilities to prevent deaths without changing the overall outcome. Security opens fire. I redirect their aim. Residents get injured. Bashir treats them. We minimize casualties while the historical record plays out. Bashir's medical tricorder hummed as he considered the plan. It's risky. Any significant deviation could alter the timeline. But if we're careful, if we preserve the key elements, we might save lives without dooming the future, Matt completed. It's not perfect. People will still die. But it's better than accepting 350 deaths as inevitable. Cisco stood, and Matt could sense the commander's military precision settling into place. We have 3 days. Day 1, we map the district and identify the key players. Day 2, we position ourselves for maximum impact. Day 3, the riot begins, and we do everything in our power to defend the innocent. The law had always been Matt Murdoch's weapon of choice. The Constitution, precedent, due process. The careful architecture of justice built over centuries. But as he stood in the makeshift library corner of Sanctuary District Day on September 2nd, 2024, reviewing what passed for legal documentation of the sanctuary system, he realized the law had become his enemy. This is incredible, Matt said, his fingers tracing the embossed text of a government document BC had procured. His enhanced touch could read print like Braille, detecting the microscopic variations in ink and paper. They created an entire legal framework to strip rights away while maintaining the illusion of due process. Cisco sat across from him, listening with the careful attention of a commander studying an unfamiliar battlefield. Explain it to me, counselor. In my time, we study the Bell riots as a moral failure, but the legal mechanics that enabled them aren't well documented. Matt's jaw tightened as he continued reading. It's brilliant in its cruelty. The Federal Employment and Housing Act of 2019 established temporary sanctuary districts as transitional housing for the unemployed. The key word is voluntary. Technically, no one is forced into the camps. But if you lose your job and can't find housing, the government offers sanctuary placement as an alternative to homelessness. And once you accept? Bashir asked, his medical tricorder quietly scanning for surveillance devices while maintaining the appearance of reading his own materials. You're classified as a protected resident, Matt continued, his voice dripping with acid. Which sounds benign until you realize it's a legal category that suspends most constitutional protections. Habeas corpus doesn't apply because you're not technically imprisoned. You're being housed. Due process is waived because sanctuary placement is an administrative action, not a criminal proceeding. Fourth Amendment protections against search and seizure don't exist because you consented to sanctuary protocols when you accepted placement. Lee slammed her hand on the table. We didn't consent to anything. When I lost my job and got evicted, I had two choices: die on the streets or come here. That's not consent. That's coercion. Legally, it's close enough, Matt said bitterly. The courts have upheld the sanctuary system in multiple cases. The reasoning is that the government is providing a service, not imposing a punishment. And because sanctuary districts are temporary, the courts have declined to apply stricter constitutional scrutiny. How long have people been here? Cisco asked. Some residents have been in District A for 3 years, BC answered. And there's no mechanism for leaving. You can't get a job without an address outside the sanctuary. You can't get housing without a job. Once you're in the system, you're trapped. Matt's enhanced hearing tracked conversations throughout the district as he worked. Parents comforting children, residents sharing meager food supplies, sick people coughing without access to adequate medical care. 10,000 people, invisible to a society that had solved its conscience problem by putting walls around it. The truly diabolic part, Matt continued, is that the sanctuary system is constitutional under current interpretation. The government isn't actively oppressing people. It's just failing to help them. And there's no constitutional right to housing, employment, or economic security. The courts have consistently ruled that negative rights, freedom from government interference, are protected, but positive rights, freedom to basic necessities, aren't guaranteed. So the system can legally abandon people, Bashir said. Create conditions of desperation and suffering through neglect, not action. Exactly. And because the sanctuary districts reduce visible homelessness and street crime, public support remains high. Out of sight, out of mind. The law has become an instrument of structural violence, and it's all perfectly legal. Cisco's expression darkened. In my time, we learned this lesson. After the Bell riots, Earth began to recognize positive rights. The right to food, shelter, healthcare, meaningful work. The idea that freedom requires material security, not just absence of oppression. But that evolution took decades. Decades we don't have, Matt said. The people here are suffering now, and in 24 hours, some of them are going to die trying to make the world pay attention. He set down the legal documents and pulled out the hand-drawn maps they'd been creating. Matt's radar sense had provided the foundation. His ability to perceive space in 3 dimensions allowed him to map the district with architectural precision. BC and Lee had filled in details about resident populations, security patterns, and potential flashpoints. The processing center is the key, Matt said, his fingers tracing the building's outline. 2 floors, main entrance here, emergency exits on the east and west sides. Security office on the first floor with weapons lockers. Communication systems on the second floor. Landlines, computers, everything needed to contact the outside world. The riot will begin here, Cisco said, pointing to the main plaza. Residents gather for the morning meal distribution. Security is minimal, maybe 6 guards. When the surge begins, they'll be overwhelmed immediately. That's where we prevent the first deaths, Matt said. Security will try to restore order with force. Batons, tear gas, possibly firearms if they panic. My job is to be in the crowd, using my abilities to redirect violence. A guard raises a gun. I disarm him non-lethally. Residents charge security. I guide them around the most dangerous confrontations. Without anyone noticing you're intervening, Bashir added. You'll need to be invisible, just another body in the chaos. Matt smiled grimly. I've spent years as a vigilante in Hell's Kitchen. Blending into chaos is my specialty. Once the processing center is seized, Cisco continued, I assume Bell's role. I organize the hostage takers, establish rules for treating captives humanely, and make contact with authorities. The historical records indicate Bell kept the situation stable for 48 hours through force of personality and moral authority. You'll need that authority from mine at 1, Matt warned. The residents who storm the processing center will be running on adrenaline and rage. You'll have maybe 30 seconds to establish yourself as the leader before someone does something that can't be undone. Kills a hostage, assaults the journalists, crosses a line that changes the standoff into a massacre. Cisco's heartbeat remained steady. The commander had faced worse odds. I've commanded a space station in disputed territory during a war. I can handle 30 angry protesters. These aren't protesters, Commander. They're desperate people who've been systematically dehumanized. Some of them want blood, not justice. You'll need to channel that rage into political action. Convince them that holding hostages and telling their stories will accomplish more than violence. While ensuring the journalists get their story, Lee interjected. That's the whole point, right? The media coverage that changes public opinion? Exactly, Matt confirmed. The journalists, Chris Brenner and his assistant Vin, need to survive, need to have access to the sanctuary residents, need to broadcast what they witness. Their reports are what break through America's indifference. Without them, the riot is just another violent incident that justifies more oppression. Bashir pulled up information on his disguised tricorder. Historical records show that Brenner's broadcasts included interviews with sanctuary residents, footage of the district's conditions, and real-time updates during the standoff. The human element, faces, names, stories, that's what penetrated public consciousness. Then my priority inside the processing center is keeping Brenner alive and documenting everything, Cisco said. Even if it means putting myself at risk earlier than the timeline strictly requires. Matt's enhanced hearing caught the implication. You're planning to die protecting him, aren't you? That's Bell's sacrifice? Taking a bullet meant for hostages. If necessary, Cisco said quietly. The historical records indicate Bell dies on September 5th, approximately 1600 hours, when security forces breach the processing center. He places himself between the hostages and hostile fire, giving his life to demonstrate the residents' humanity. His death ends the standoff peacefully. The hostage takers surrender rather than continue fighting, moved by his sacrifice. A Christ figure, Matt said, his Catholic background recognizing the symbolism. The innocent dying to redeem the guilty, his blood purchasing salvation. It's powerful narrative theology, Commander. No wonder history remembers him. The real Gabriel Bell was by all accounts a good man. Cisco said. I'm just trying to honor his memory by playing his role well enough to preserve what he stood for. BC's voice was tight with anger. This is insane. We're sitting here planning deaths like it's a military operation. These are people, my friends, Lee's neighbors, and you're talking about them like casualties in some grand historical equation. You're right, Matt said. And I'm sorry. But we're trying to minimize those casualties without destroying the future. That's the tightrope we're walking. What if you're wrong? Lee demanded. What if you change something and the timeline doesn't collapse? What if you could save everyone and the future turns out fine? The silence stretched for 10 seconds. Finally, Cisco spoke. Then we'll have made the wrong decision, and I'll have to live with that. But I've seen what the Federation becomes. A society where poverty, war, and prejudice are distant memories. Where humanity explores the galaxy not to conquer, but to learn. Where we've achieved things that seem impossible from this vantage point. I can't risk losing that, even if it means accepting terrible costs now. The trolley problem, Matt said quietly. Do you pull the lever to divert a runaway trolley from killing 5 people if it means the trolley kills 1 person instead? Utilitarian ethics says yes, 5 lives outweigh 1. But deontological ethics says no. You can't deliberately kill an innocent person, even to save others. There's no right answer. Except we're not talking about 1 versus 5, Bashir said. We're talking about 350 now versus potentially billions later. The math is overwhelming. Math doesn't account for the intrinsic value of human life, Matt countered. Every person in this district has inherent dignity and worth. Treating them as acceptable losses, even for a greater good, violates that dignity. So what do we do? Lee asked. Because in 24 hours, this powder keg explodes whether we like it or not. Matt stood, his radar sense mapping the district around them. Thousands of heartbeats, each one a person whose life hung in the balance between history's demands and his determination to defend them. We fight for every single life, Matt said. We accept the riot has to happen, that Bell has to die, that history has its requirements. But within those constraints, we treat every potential casualty as someone worth saving. We don't accept 350 deaths as inevitable. We fight to make it 349, 300, 200, whatever number we can drive down without breaking the timeline. And if we can't, BC asked. Then we try anyway, Matt said. Because I'm a defense attorney. I've built my career on defending people the system has declared expendable. Sometimes I lose. The client goes to prison, gets convicted, suffers consequences I can't prevent. But I fight for them anyway, because that's what justice demands. Not victory, effort, not perfection, integrity. Cisco nodded slowly. Then we spend the next 24 hours positioning ourselves for maximum impact. Bashir, you'll establish a triage station in the plaza with whatever medical supplies you can acquire. When the riot starts, you treat the injured immediately. Prevent deaths from inadequate care. I'll need help, Bashir said. Medical personnel, volunteers who can handle trauma. I know some people, Lee said. Residents with medical training. We've been running a makeshift clinic already. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. Matt, you'll be in the crowd during the initial surge, Cisco continued. Your enhanced senses make you the perfect early warning system. You can detect when security is about to use force, when residents are about to do something dangerous. Intervene subtly. Prevent escalation without revealing yourself. I'll wear the mask, Matt said. In the chaos, no one will pay attention to one more person trying to help. And the mask has a practical purpose. It protects my identity if this timeline's version of me exists somewhere. Good point, Bashir said. We can't risk temporal paradoxes. If you encounter your younger self, I'll avoid him, Matt finished. Trust me, I have no desire to have that conversation. BC Lee, you'll spread the word among residents, Cisco said. When the riot starts, people need to know there's medical help in the plaza. Direct the injured to Bashir's triage station. Save everyone you can. And you'll be inside the processing center, Matt said to Cisco. Playing Gabriel Bell, keeping hostages safe, buying time for media coverage. The most dangerous role. It's my responsibility, Cisco said simply. I'm the one who chose to take Bell's place. I'll see it through. Matt's enhanced hearing picked up approaching footsteps. Security patrol, 3 guards making their rounds. He gestured for silence. September 3rd, 2024, dawned gray and cold over San Francisco. Matt stood in the plaza at a 600 hours, his enhanced senses painting a portrait of the sanctuary district, waking to its final day of invisible suffering. Within 12 hours, the world would be forced to see what it had created. Within 48 hours, 350 people, give or take however many lives they could save, would be dead, and humanity would begin its long journey toward the stars. Gabriel Bell was already in position, or rather, Commander Benjamin Cisco, wearing Bell's face and carrying his name, stood near the processing center entrance with the calm confidence of a man who'd made peace with dying for a cause. Matt's enhanced hearing tracked the commander's heartbeat, steady, controlled, ready. You look like a man going to his execution, Matt said quietly, approaching from Cisco's blind side. Ironic choice of words, counselor, Cisco replied without turning. How are you holding up? Terrified, Matt admitted. I've faced down Kingpin, survived the Hand's assassination attempts, fought my way through Hell's Kitchen's worst. But I've never had to defend people by letting them die. It goes against every instinct. Welcome to command, Cisco said. Every officer who leads people into danger faces this calculus. You send people into situations you know might kill them because the mission demands it. You make decisions that will haunt you forever because the alternative is worse. It never gets easier. Matt's radar sense detected Bashir in the plaza's far corner, setting up his makeshift triage station with Lee and several resident volunteers. Medical supplies were minimal. First aid kits, clean water, bandages improvised from torn clothing. Nothing that would raise security suspicion, but enough to treat basic injuries when the chaos began. Bashir's as ready as he can be, Matt reported. Lee estimates maybe 50 residents with medical training willing to help. It's not enough for mass casualties, but it's better than nothing. Every life we save is a victory, Cisco said, even if history doesn't record it. The plaza was filling with residents gathering for morning meal distribution. Matt's enhanced hearing picked up hundreds of conversations, complaints about food quality, speculation about rumors that something was going to happen today, parents trying to keep children entertained despite the oppressive atmosphere. Normal people trapped in an abnormal situation, invisible to a society that had decided they didn't matter. And somewhere in that crowd was the core group of 30 young men who would spark the riot. BC had identified their leader, a man named BC Cartwright, no relation to their BC, who'd been organizing resistance for weeks. Cartwright was intelligent, charismatic, and furious. He'd recognized that peaceful protest had failed, that the legal system offered no recourse. that violence was the only language the powerful understood. Matt's Catholic guilt whispered that Cartwright was wrong, that violence only begets more violence. But history proved him right. The Bell Riots would succeed where peaceful protest had failed, precisely because they were violent enough to penetrate public indifference. "There," Sisko said quietly. "Cartwright and his people," moving into position near the main entrance. Matt's radar sense tracked them. 32 men, ages ranging from late teens to early 40s, heartbeats elevated with adrenaline. Several carried improvised weapons, metal pipes, broken bottles, tools that could become lethal in the right hands. They were coordinating through hand signals, moving with purpose toward security checkpoints. "They're going to move when meal distribution ends," Matt predicted. "Security will be dispersed. Residents will already be gathered in the plaza, and the processing center staff will be transitioning shifts. It's the optimal moment for overwhelming force." "Approximately 1,400 hours, just like the historical records indicated," Sisko confirmed. "Which means we have 8 hours to finalize positioning and 7 hours after that to survive the standoff. Bashir has his medical station ready. BC and Lee are spreading word about where to find help if things go wrong. I'm going to shadow the security forces, track their response patterns. When they move to use lethal force, I'll intervene." "Without being detected," Sisko emphasized. "The timeline can't record a masked vigilante preventing deaths. You'll have to be invisible." Matt smiled grimly. "I've had practice." He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his radar sense mapping every person, every obstacle, every potential threat. His enhanced hearing tracked security communications, guards complaining about overtime, discussing rumored budget cuts, speculating about whether today's meal distribution would see protests like last week's. They had no idea what was coming. No idea that in 8 hours, their world would explode into violence that would echo through centuries. At 1200 hours, Matt detected the shift. Cartwright's people tightening formation, heartbeats synchronizing with shared purpose. The decision had been made. The point of no return was approaching. At 1300 hours, the journalists arrived. Chris Brinner and his assistant Vin entered through the main gate. Camera equipment visible, press credentials displayed. They were doing a story on Sanctuary District conditions, completely unaware they were about to become hostages in a historical event their reporting would help immortalize. Matt's enhanced hearing picked up Brinner's conversation with security. "Just want to document daily life here, get resident perspectives on the program. We'll stay out of your way." The guard's response was bored. "Whatever. Just don't cause problems. We've got enough headaches, see continue today." If only they knew. At 1330 hours, Sisko moved toward the processing center entrance, positioning himself where Cartwright's group would see him. The commander's body language shifted. Less military precision, more resident desperation. He was becoming Gabriel Bell. Ordinary man thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Leader by accident and moral clarity. At 1345 hours, meal distribution ended. Residents began dispersing, but Cartwright's group remained in the plaza, gathering mass, feeding on shared frustration. At 1355 hours, Matt detected the surge building, heartbeats accelerating, breathing patterns shifting, muscle tension indicating imminent action. He moved to the crowd's edge, mask in place, senses fully extended. At 1400 hours exactly, Cartwright raised his hand and shouted, "No more. We take back our dignity today." The crowd erupted. 32 men became a wave of human desperation, crashing against the processing center's defenses. Security guards raised batons, shouting orders that were drowned in the roar of voices demanding justice, recognition, humanity. And Matt moved. His enhanced senses created a four-dimensional map of violence unfolding in real time. A security guard drawing a weapon. Matt's thrown rock struck the guard's hand with surgical precision, sending the gun skittering across pavement. A resident charging with a pipe raised high. Matt's intercepting tackle looked like accidental collision, redirecting momentum away from a guard's skull. A tear gas canister rolling toward children. Matt kicked it into an empty area, the gas dispersing harmlessly. He was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost in the chaos, each intervention looking like accident or coincidence. A trip at the right moment, a shove that seemed like crowd pressure, a grab that appeared to be someone catching their balance. But people were still getting hurt. A resident took a baton to the ribs and collapsed coughing. A guard went down under multiple attackers, taking blows that would leave him with broken bones. A young woman caught tear gas full in the face and screamed, temporarily blinded. Medical station in the plaza. Matt heard BC shouting. Dr. Bashir is treating injured. Plaza, southeast corner. The injured began flowing toward Bashir's position, and Matt's enhanced hearing tracked the doctor working with practiced efficiency. Broken ribs taped, lacerations cleaned and bandaged, tear gas victims flushed with water. Bashir was performing 24th century emergency medicine with 21st century supplies, and somehow making it work. The processing center doors shattered under coordinated assault. Cartwright's group poured inside, residents flooding behind them. Matt heard screams from inside, staff members realizing they were about to become hostages, Brinner shouting something about staying calm and documenting everything. Then Cisco's voice cut through the chaos, amplified by the building's PA system. "Everyone stop! We're not here to hurt anyone. We're here to be heard." The violence paused. Not completely, but enough. Matt could sense the moment of collective uncertainty, the crowd wavering between continued rage and the possibility of something more effective. "My name is Gabriel Bell," Cisco continued, his voice carrying absolute authority. "And I'm taking control of the situation. Security personnel, drop your weapons and move to the conference room on the second floor. All visitors and staff, you're under our protection. No one will harm you if you cooperate. Residents, I need volunteers to secure the building and establish communication with authorities." Matt's enhanced hearing tracked responses throughout the processing center. Most security guards complied, recognizing they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. A few resisted. Matt heard struggling, impacts, someone shouting. But Cisco's people contained the situation before it could escalate into lethal violence. Within 5 minutes, the processing center was secured. Hostages were consolidated on the second floor. Cartwright's group established perimeter defense. And Cisco, Gabriel Bell, history would record, stood in the communication room, preparing to make the call that would bring media attention and law enforcement response. Outside, the plaza had become a war zone. Matt's radar sense painted the picture. Dozens of injured residents receiving care at Bashir's station, security reinforcements arriving at the district perimeter, fires burning in 3 locations, and the unmistakable sound of more violence erupting in the district's northern sector. The riot was spreading. History was unfolding exactly as recorded. Matt moved through the chaos. Still wearing his mask, still intervening wherever he could. A fire threatening a residential building. He organized a bucket brigade, directing water from a burst hydrant. A group of residents attacking isolated security guards. He created distractions, allowing the guards to retreat without casualties. A child separated from parents in the chaos. He guided them back together, his enhanced hearing tracking the mother's frantic calls. But people were dying. Matt's enhanced hearing picked up the sounds he dreaded. Heartbeats stopping, death rattles, mourning cries from those who'd lost loved ones in the violence. A resident shot by security during the initial assault. An elderly woman trampled in the stampede. A man with a pre-existing condition whose heart gave out under the stress. Each death was a failure, a person he couldn't save. A name that would join the 350 casualties history demanded. Murdoch. Bashir's voice cut through Matt's spiraling guilt. I need you here. Patient's going into shock. I need an extra pair of hands. Matt rushed to the triage station, his enhanced senses immediately assessing the situation. Young man, maybe 25. Stab wound to the abdomen, blood pressure dropping, skin clammy. Bashir was working with primitive equipment, trying to stabilize someone who needed a surgical suite and modern medicine. Apply pressure here, Bashir ordered, guiding Matt's hands to the wound. Don't let up, no matter what. Lee, I need clean water and every sterile bandage we have left. Matt pressed down, feeling warm blood pulse against his palms. His enhanced senses detected the patient's weakening heartbeat. Night fell over Sanctuary District E like a shroud. But the fires burning throughout the camp transformed darkness into something more sinister. Flickering orange light, painting shadows that moved with malevolent purpose. Matt stood on the processing center's roof at 2200 hours, his enhanced senses tracking the chaos below while Cisco negotiated with authorities inside. The riot had spread beyond anyone's predictions. What began as a targeted seizure of the processing center had metastasized into district-wide upheaval. Matt's enhanced hearing painted an auditory map of destruction. Buildings burning in sectors C and D. Residents looting abandoned security stations, groups of young men roaming with improvised weapons. And underneath it all, the constant sound of suffering. Crying children, injured people calling for help. Families huddling in terror. How many dead? Matt asked as Bashir joined him on the roof. The doctor's clothing stained with blood from 12 hours of non-stop triage. 43 confirmed, Bashir said quietly. Another 27 critically injured who might not survive the night. We've treated over 200 wounded, saved maybe 20 who would have died without immediate intervention. But the numbers keep climbing. 43. The number sat in Matt's chest like a stone. 43 people who'd been alive this morning, who'd had names and histories and people who loved them. 43 casualties in a war where the enemy was systemic neglect and the battlefield was America's conscience. The historical records indicated 350 total casualties, Matt said. We're at 43 after 12 hours. If the rate continues, we'll exceed the recorded number by a significant margin, Bashir finished. Which means either the historical records were incomplete or we're changing the timeline in ways we don't fully understand. Matt's enhanced hearing picked up Cisco's voice from inside the building, talking to someone on a phone line. Need to speak with someone who has actual authority to negotiate. I don't want promises, I want action. Dismantle the sanctuary districts. Provide real housing, real jobs, real opportunity. That's what it costs to end this peacefully. How's he holding up? Bashir asked. Like a man who's commanded through worse, Matt said. But I can hear the strain in his voice. He's been Gabriel Bell for 12 hours, keeping 50 hostage takers calm while protecting 32 hostages. It's an impossible balancing act. One wrong word and someone does something that can't be undone. Inside the processing center, the situation remained tense but controlled. Cisco had established strict rules. No violence against hostages, no sexual assault, no theft of personal property. The journalists, Brenner and Vin, had been given access to interview residents, their camera capturing footage that was already being broadcast nationwide. America was finally seeing the faces of the people it had forgotten. But violence breeds violence, and Matt could sense the situation's fragility. Cartwright's group wanted blood, wanted revenge for years of systematic dehumanization. Only Cisco's moral authority kept them from executing hostages or assaulting prisoners. One challenge to Bell's leadership, one hothead deciding to make an example, and the standoff would collapse into massacre. "I need to get back inside," Matt said. "Cisco might need backup if the situation deteriorates." "You can't," Bashir said. "The historical records don't mention anyone else leading the residents. If you're visible, if you're seen helping Bell organize things, you could alter the timeline's perception of events." "Then I'll be invisible," Matt countered. "I've spent the day being everywhere and nowhere. I can do it for another 36 hours. Bashir's tricorder hummed softly. "The temporal mechanics are becoming unstable. Every intervention we make creates ripples. I'm detecting minor variations in the timeline's quantum signature. Nothing catastrophic yet, but we're pushing the boundaries of acceptable change." "People are dying," Matt said flatly. "I don't care about quantum signatures. I care about the young mother I couldn't save this afternoon, the elderly man who died of a heart attack because stress and inadequate medical care killed him, the child who won't see his 10th birthday because we're serving history's demands." "I care about them too," Bashir said, and Matt could hear the genuine anguish in his voice. "Every death is a failure of the oath I took. First, do no harm. But I'm watching people die because treating them fully might change the timeline, because saving one person here might doom billions later. It's torture." The explosion echoed from the district's eastern sector. Something major, possibly a gas line rupture. Matt's enhanced hearing tracked the blast wave, the screams, the building collapse. More casualties, more names for history's ledger. "We're losing control," Matt said. "The riot's becoming something bigger than Bell's standoff. If we don't contain the violence in the outer sectors, the casualty count will dwarf 350. "What do you suggest?" Bashir asked. "We can't be everywhere at once." "No, but we can organize the residents who want to help. Lee, BC, the medical volunteers, they're already working triage. We expand that model. Establish safe zones, organize fire brigades, create corridors for people to escape dangerous areas. Let the riot run its course in the political center, the processing center standoff, but minimize collateral damage." "That's a significant intervention," Bashir warned. "The historical records don't mention organized civilian response." "The historical records are incomplete," Matt countered. "You said it yourself. We're already detecting timeline variations. Either we accept that our presence has changed things and work to minimize casualties, or we stand back and watch hundreds of additional people die for timeline purity we've already compromised." Bashir was silent for 10 seconds, his medical ethics warring with temporal protocols. Finally, "You're right. We're already in violation of the temporal prime directive by being here, by intervening at all. We might as well save as many lives as possible while we're committing temporal crimes." Matt allowed himself a grim smile. "Welcome to the defense attorney's worldview, Doctor. When the system's already broken, you work within the breaks to defend your clients. Let's go save some lives." They descended from the roof and found Lee coordinating volunteers in the plaza. Her clothing was filthy, her face exhausted. but her determination burned bright. "We need to establish safe zones," Matt said without preamble. "Sectors where we can move families, children, elderly, injured. Places we can defend against the worst violence." Lee's eyes narrowed. "You want to create sanctuaries within the sanctuary. The irony isn't lost on me." "I know. But right now, people need protection. Can you identify buildings that are defensible, have water access, and can accommodate maybe 500 residents each?" Lee's mind worked quickly. The survival skills she'd developed over 6 months in the district clicking into tactical planning mode. Building 7 in Sector B, the old recreation center in Sector C, and the medical clinic in Sector A. They're solid structures, have emergency supplies, and are away from the main violence. "Perfect," Matt said. "Spread the word. Families with children, elderly residents, anyone who's injured or scared, direct them to these safe zones. Bashir will establish medical stations at each location. I'll patrol between them, intervene when violence threatens to spread." "What about the people who want to fight?" Lee asked. "The ones who see this as their only chance to make the world pay attention?" "Let them fight," Matt said. "This riot has to happen. The standoff has to continue. Bell's sacrifice has to matter. But we can separate the combatants from the innocents, minimize the collateral damage without changing the essential nature of events." Over the next 3 hours, they organized what Matt mentally termed the invisible resistance. A network of residents working to protect each other while the riot raged around them. Volunteers guided families to safe zones. Bashir and his medical team rotated between locations, treating injured and establishing supply chains. BC organized fire watch teams to prevent blazes from spreading into residential areas. And Matt moved through the darkness like his namesake devil, intervening wherever violence threatened innocence. A gang of residents breaking into a family shelter, he created distractions, allowing the families to escape. Security forces preparing to storm a building full of terrified people. He redirected their attention to actual threats. Fires spreading toward occupied structures, he organized bucket brigades and fire breaks. But he couldn't be everywhere. His enhanced senses detected atrocities he couldn't prevent. A sexual assault in a dark alley 300 yards away. Security guards beating an unarmed resident unconscious. Residents executing someone they'd accused of collaboration. Each incident was a moral failure, a person he couldn't save, a crime he couldn't stop. At 300 hours on September 4th, Matt returned to the processing center to check on Cisco. The commander was in the communication room, negotiating with someone Matt's enhanced hearing identified as a deputy mayor. "Understand your concerns," Cisco was saying, his voice hoarse from 16 hours of continuous talking. "But empty promises won't end this. We need concrete commitments, timeline for dismantling sanctuary districts, legislation guaranteeing housing and employment, investigations into the deaths that have occurred here." The deputy mayor's response was bureaucratic deflection. "Mr. Bell, you have to understand the political realities. The sanctuary program has broad public support. Dismantling it would require congressional action, budget allocations." "Then start the process," Cisco interrupted. "Right now, tonight, or tomorrow morning, the hostages start suffering consequences." Matt's enhanced hearing detected the lie in Cisco's heartbeat. The commander had no intention of harming hostages, but the threat had to be credible for negotiations to work. It was a bluff, and both Cisco and the deputy mayor knew it. "I'll convey your demands to the mayor," the deputy mayor said. "But Mr. Bell, you should know that we're preparing contingencies. If negotiations fail, We have tactical response teams ready to resolve this situation by force. Cisco's heartbeat jumped, just for a moment. Then people will die. Is that what you want? More blood on everyone's hands? I want this to end peacefully, the deputy mayor said. But that requires flexibility from both sides. Think about it, Mr. Bell. You have until noon tomorrow. The line went dead. Cisco sat in silence for 30 seconds before speaking without turning. I know you're there, Murdoch. You can stop lurking in the doorway. Matt entered the communication room, pulling off his mask. How did you know? I've commanded a space station for 3 years. You develop instincts about when you're being watched. How bad is it out there? 43 dead as of last count. Probably more by now. We've established safe zones and organized civilian protection. Saved maybe 30 additional lives. But the riot's still spreading, and security forces are preparing for tactical response. The deputy mayor wasn't bluffing. They're going to storm this building. I know, Cisco said quietly. That's how it happens. September 5th, approximately 1600 hours. Security forces breach the building. Gabriel Bell places himself between hostages and hostile fire, and he dies, ensuring the standoff ends peacefully. You die, Matt corrected. You're Gabriel Bell now. When they breach tomorrow, you're the one who'll take the bullet. Cisco turned, and Matt could sense the man's exhaustion, the weight of command decisions, the burden of playing a dead man's role. I've known since I took his place. It's the price for preserving the timeline. There has to be another way, Matt insisted. Maybe if we position security forces differently, if we negotiate a surrender that protects you, then Bell doesn't die, and history changes, Cisco interrupted. His sacrifice is what makes this moment meaningful. An ordinary man giving his life to protect others, proving that the sanctuary residents aren't monsters. They're desperate people pushed beyond their limits. Without that sacrifice, the riots are just violence. With it, they're a moral awakening. Matt's Catholic guilt twisted. You're talking about martyrdom, dying for the sins of society, your blood purchasing redemption. It's Christ imagery, Commander, and it's asking you to commit suicide for a cause. I've made peace with it, Cisco said. I have a son in the 24th century, a station full of people who depend on me, a war to fight against the Dominion. I want to return to all of that desperately. But if I have to die here to ensure that future exists, then I die here. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Or the one, Matt finished, recognizing the reference. Spock's sacrifice. But he came back, Commander. Will you? I don't know, Cisco admitted. My colleague Dax is outside the Sanctuary District with our transport technology. If she can lock onto my position at the moment of death, she might be able to beam me out before it's fatal. But the timing has to be perfect, and the historical records have to show Gabriel Bell dying. It's a narrow window. Then we'll make sure that window stays open, Matt said. I'll be in the building when security breaches. I'll track their movements, their firing solutions, their tactical response. When the moment comes, I'll create the conditions for Dax to extract you. That's a significant risk, Cisco warned. If you're detected, if your intervention is recorded, I've spent 16 hours being invisible, Matt said. I can do it for another 24. Besides, I didn't come this far to watch you die if there's any chance of saving you. Cisco stood, extending his hand. Thank you, Counselor, for everything you've done here, for fighting to save lives when it would have been easier to accept history's verdict. Matt shook the commander's hand, feeling the weight of shared purpose. That's what defense attorneys do. We fight for our clients even when the system says they're expendable. And right now, Commander, you're my client. I'm going to do everything in my power to get you home. And yourself? Sisko asked. Bashir confirmed that we can't return you to your own time. You'll have to live through the next 9 years. Then I'll use them well, Matt said. I'll remember everyone who died here. I'll work to ensure the sanctuary districts are actually dismantled, that the promises made during these riots are kept. Maybe I can be a voice for the voiceless in this timeline. Make sure history's casualties aren't forgotten. That's a heavy burden, Sisko said. I'm Catholic, Matt replied with a bitter smile. Guilt is kind of our thing. September 5th, 1400 hours. 2 hours before Gabriel Bell's scheduled death. Matt stood in the processing center's maintenance corridor, his enhanced senses tracking every person in the building, 53 residents holding the structure, 32 hostages in various rooms on the second floor, and Commander Sisko in the communications center, still negotiating with authorities who'd already decided to use force. The second day of the riot had been worse than the first. Matt's enhanced hearing had tracked the casualty count climbing. 67 confirmed dead, 93 critically injured, hundreds more with wounds that would leave permanent scars. The safe zones he'd organized had saved lives. Maybe 100 people who would have died without protection. But the violence had spread beyond anyone's ability to contain it. Sectors D and E were burning. Security forces had established a complete perimeter, preventing anyone from leaving the sanctuary district. National Guard units were mobilizing. And inside the processing center, the hostage takers were fracturing into factions, some wanting to surrender, others demanding they go down fighting, and Sisko barely maintaining control through force of personality alone. Murdoch, are you in position? Bashir's voice came through a primitive walkie-talkie they'd secured from security supplies. The doctor was outside the building, ready to provide medical support when the breach occurred. Affirmative, Matt replied quietly. I'm tracking tactical team movements. They're assembling in 3 locations: north entrance, south entrance, and roof access. Approximately 40 personnel total, equipped with body armor, automatic weapons, and flashbang grenades. They're planning a simultaneous breach at 1600 hours. That matches historical records, Bashir confirmed. Gabriel Bell dies at approximately 1604 hours, 4 minutes after the breach begins. Dax has confirmed she's ready to transport Sisko the moment his biosigns indicate critical injury. But the timing has to be perfect. Too early, and history records Bell surviving. Too late, and the commander actually dies. Matt's enhanced hearing picked up Dax's voice over Bashir's communicator. A woman with confidence and urgency. I've got a transporter lock on Sisko's comm badge, but the sanctuary district's security systems are creating interference. I need him in a specific location, the northeast corner of the second floor, where the metal structural elements create a clear transport corridor. Can you get him there? I'll make it happen, Matt said. But I need to know exactly when security will breach that location. If Sisko's there too early, he'll be exposed. Too late, and he won't be in position when the shooting starts. His radar sense painted the tactical picture. Security forces were professionals, coordinating movements with military precision. They'd been training for this breach all day, running simulations, establishing fields of fire. When they moved, they'd move fast and hard. Overwhelming force designed to end the standoff in under 5 minutes. And somewhere in that 5-minute window, Gabriel Bell would place himself between hostages and hostile fire, and a bullet would find him. unless Matt could manipulate the geometry of violence with such precision that Cisco took a non-lethal but historically convincing wound at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right location for Dex to extract him. It was the most impossible shot of Matt Murdock's career, and he was blind. "Commander Cisco," Matt said into his walkie-talkie, "I need you to move the hostages to the northeast corner of the second floor. Use the excuse that it's the safest location during a breach. Thick walls, limited sight lines for security forces." "Understood," Cisco's voice came back. "But Cartwright's getting suspicious. He thinks I'm planning to surrender without a fight. He's talking about making an example, executing a hostage to prove we're serious." Matt's enhanced hearing detected the truth. Cartwright and 5 of his most loyal followers were arguing with Cisco in the communication room, heartbeats elevated with adrenaline and rage. "We've been talking for 2 days," Cartwright was saying. "Nothing's changed. They're not dismantling the sanctuary districts. They're not providing real help. They're just waiting us out, waiting for us to give up so they can go back to forgetting we exist." "They're preparing to breach," Cisco said calmly. "Which means we've run out of time. If we execute hostages now, we lose any moral high ground. We become the monsters they think we are." "Maybe that's what it takes," Cartwright shouted. "Maybe they need to see we're serious. Pick one, that journalist, Brenner. Put a gun to his head and tell them they have 30 minutes, or he dies." Matt was moving before his conscious mind made the decision. He burst into the communication room, mask in place, moving with the confident violence of someone who'd spent years fighting criminals in Hell's Kitchen. "Nobody's executing anyone," Matt said, his voice carrying the devil of Hell's Kitchen's menace. "You want to make a statement? Fine, but not like this." Cartwright spun, hand reaching for the gun tucked in his waistband. Matt's radar sense tracked the movement, predicted the draw, and his thrown object, a stapler from a nearby desk, struck Cartwright's hand with perfect precision. The gun clattered to the floor. "Who the hell are you?" Cartwright demanded. "Someone who's been watching you for 2 days," Matt said. "I've seen you organize this action, seen you keep your people disciplined. You're better than executing hostages, smarter than throwing away the moral victory you've already won." "Moral victory?" Cartwright laughed bitterly. "We're trapped in here. Security's going to kill us all. What victory is there in dying for nothing?" "You're not dying for nothing," Cisco said, stepping between Matt and Cartwright. "In 2 hours, security forces will breach this building. Some of us will die. But the journalists have been broadcasting for 2 days. America has seen inside the sanctuary districts. They've heard our stories, seen our faces, recognized our humanity. That's the victory. We made them see us." "And it only cost 67 dead," Cartwright said. "Maybe more after today. Tell me, Bell, was it worth it?" The silence stretched for 5 seconds. Matt could hear Cisco's heartbeat, steady despite the weight of that question. The commander had commanded through a war, made decisions that cost lives, carried the burden of command. But this was different. These were his own people, his own time, his own humanity on trial. "I don't know," Cisco said quietly. "Ask me in 10 years, when the sanctuary districts are gone. Ask me in 50 years, when America has rebuilt its social safety net. Ask me in 300 years, when humanity explores the stars and poverty is a distant memory. Maybe then I'll know if 67 deaths purchased something worth dying for." Cartwright studied Cisco for a long moment. "You're a strange man, Bell. You talk like you can see the future, like you know all this suffering leads somewhere better." "I have faith," Cisco said, in humanity's capacity for growth, for learning from mistakes, for becoming something better than we are. That faith might be foolish, but it's all I have. Matt's enhanced hearing detected the shift. Cartwright's heartbeat slowing, the rage cooling into something more reflective. The crisis had passed, at least for now. Fine, Cartwright said. No executions. But when security breaches, we don't surrender. We fight. We make them work for every inch. Agreed, Cisco said. But we fight to protect the hostages, not to kill security forces. We prove we're better than the system that failed us. That's how we win. At 15:30 hours, Cisco moved the hostages to the northeast corner of the second floor. The journalists Brenner and Vin went with them, cameras still rolling, documenting everything. Matt positioned himself in the adjacent corridor, his enhanced senses tracking both the hostages and the security forces preparing to breach. At 15:45 hours, Bashir confirmed casualties had reached 79 dead. The number sat in Matt's chest like a stone. 79 names. 79 people who'd been alive 4 days ago. And the bloodiest hour was still ahead. At 15:55 hours, Matt's enhanced hearing detected security forces moving into final positions. 43 personnel, coordinating through tactical radios, preparing to breach simultaneously from multiple entry points. At 15:58 hours, Cisco gathered the hostage takers in the second floor corridor. When they come, he said quietly, remember what we're fighting for. Not revenge, not violence, but recognition, dignity, the right to be seen as human beings who matter. At 15:59 hours, Matt spoke into his walkie-talkie. Dax, confirm transport lock. Lock confirmed. Dax's voice came back. But I'm reading multiple biosigns in that area. If Cisco moves even 2 feet in the wrong direction, I might grab the wrong person. Then we don't have room for error, Matt said. At 1600 hours exactly, flashbang grenades exploded throughout the processing center. Matt's enhanced senses reeled from the sensory assault, the concussive blast overwhelming his hearing, the bright light painful even through his radar sense. But he forced himself to focus, tracking the security breach through sound and vibration. South entrance, security forces pouring in, shouting orders, residents scrambling to defensive positions. North entrance, more security, exchanging fire with residents, bullets punching through drywall. Roof access, tactical team rappelling down, securing the stairwell, moving with professional efficiency. And in the northeast corner, hostages screaming as the violence erupted around them, Cisco standing between them and the chaos, shield raised, voice shouting for calm. Matt moved through the confusion like smoke, his radar sense creating a 4-dimensional map of violence. A resident with a gun taking aim at security. Matt's intercepting tackle sent the shot wide. A security officer preparing to throw another flashbang into the hostage area. Matt's thrown object knocked it from his hand, the grenade exploding harmlessly in an empty corridor. But he couldn't stop everything. Bullets were flying, residents and security exchanging fire, and in 4 minutes, Gabriel Bell would be hit. At 16:02 hours, security forces reached the second floor corridor. Cisco stood in the doorway to the hostage room, arms spread, making himself the largest target. "Don't shoot," Cisco shouted. "The hostages are safe. We're willing to negotiate." "Drop your weapons and get on the ground," a security commander ordered. "You have 5 seconds to comply." Cartwright and his people raised their guns, refusing to surrender. The security forces tightened their trigger fingers, preparing to fire. And Matt realized with horrible clarity that history's moment had arrived. Gabriel Bell would try to prevent bloodshed, would place himself between the two sides, and would take bullets meant for others. "Now, Commander," Matt shouted into his walkie-talkie. "Execute the play." Sisko dove toward the hostages as security opened fire. Bullets traced through the air where he'd been standing, and Matt tracked their trajectories with his enhanced senses. 3 rounds would have hit Sisko's center mass. September 7th, 2024, 0800 hours. The Sanctuary District was quiet for the first time in 4 days. But it was the quiet of exhaustion and grief, not peace. Matt stood in the plaza where Bashir's triage station had operated, his enhanced senses tracking the aftermath of history's brutal requirements. Final casualty count: 107 dead, 163 critically injured, 429 wounded. The number had climbed as delayed deaths from inadequate medical care added to the toll. People who'd survived the initial violence, but succumbed to infections, untreated injuries, or simply the accumulated trauma of 4 days in hell. 107. Not the 350 the historical records had mentioned, but still 107 people who'd been alive a week ago and were dead now. 107 names Matt had memorized, 107 families destroyed, 107 sacrifices on history's altar. "We saved lives," Bashir said quietly, standing beside Matt. The doctor looked like he'd aged 10 years in 4 days. His clothing stained with blood, his eyes hollow with exhaustion, his hands still trembling from 48 hours of non-stop medical intervention. The historical records indicated 350 casualties. We reduced that by more than half. "Tell that to the 107 who died," Matt said. "Tell that to Michael Santos's daughter. Tell that to the mother who lost her son in the initial riot. Tell them we saved lives by accepting their deaths." "I know," Bashir said, "and I'll carry their names for the rest of my life." But Murdoch, if we hadn't intervened, if we'd truly done nothing, the casualties would have been catastrophic. 350 confirmed dead means dozens more dying from delayed effects. By organizing safe zones, by providing medical care, by minimizing violence where we could, we saved maybe 250 lives. "Is that how we measure success?" Matt asked. "Lives saved versus lives accepted?" "It's how we survive the burden," Bashir replied. "By remembering that we did everything we could within impossible constraints. We didn't create this situation. We just tried to minimize the suffering while preserving the future." Matt's enhanced hearing tracked activity throughout the district. Federal authorities had taken control, replacing local security forces. Medical teams from outside were finally providing real health care. Ambulances evacuating critical cases, doctors treating injuries with adequate supplies, the National Guard distributing food and water. And the media was everywhere. Brenner's broadcasts had shocked the nation. Footage of Gabriel Bell's sacrifice playing on every channel. Interviews with sanctuary residents revealing the human cost of systemic abandonment. Politicians scrambling to respond to public outrage. The Bell riots had succeeded. America's conscience had been awakened. Within 6 months, the sanctuary districts would begin to be dismantled. Social reform would gain momentum. It was the first step toward the utopian future Sisko's Federation represented. But that future had been purchased with blood, and Matt couldn't forget the price. "Commander Sisko made it back," Bashir said, checking his communicator. Dax transported him to their temporal location. Shoulder wound was serious, but treatable with our medical technology. He's recovering in their ship, waiting for us to return so they can transport back to the 24th century and repair the timeline damage. "And the real Gabriel Bell?" Matt asked. "The man whose identity Sisko assumed?" "Died 2 days before the riots began," exactly as history recorded, Bashir said. Cisco took his place to ensure Bell's actions occurred as documented. The timeline believes Gabriel Bell died protecting hostages on September 5th, 2024. History's satisfied. History's satisfied, Matt repeated bitterly. What a comfort. They walked through the district, Matt's enhanced senses cataloging destruction. Buildings burned to foundations. Personal possessions scattered and destroyed. Blood stains on pavement that would never fully wash away. This place had been a prison, and now it was a tomb. But there were also signs of resilience. Residents organizing cleanup efforts, families reuniting after days of separation, people helping each other despite having nothing themselves. The human capacity for compassion in the midst of suffering, the same capacity that made Cisco's future federation possible. Lee found them near the processing center, her face drawn but determined. They're saying the Sanctuary District program will be reviewed. Congressional investigations, policy changes, maybe actual reform. Bell's death, his sacrifice, it worked. People finally care. How many had to die before they cared? Matt asked. Too many, Lee said. But if their deaths mean my children grow up in a better world, if the sanctuary districts really get dismantled, if America actually remembers what happened here, then maybe it means something. Maybe they didn't die for nothing. BC joined them, limping from an injury sustained during the riot. Found something you should see, Murdoch. The memorial wall. He led them to the district's southern fence, where residents had created an impromptu memorial. Names written on fabric scraps, flowers scavenged from abandoned gardens, photographs of the dead. 107 names, 107 faces, 107 lives reduced to entries on a wall. Matt's enhanced touch traced the names, reading each one through microscopic texture variations. Michael Santos, age 25. Sarah Chen, age 67. Marcus Washington, age 19. Names he'd heard crying out in pain, heartbeats he'd tracked stopping, people he couldn't save despite everything he'd tried. I want to remember them, Matt said quietly. Not as casualties or statistics, but as people. Individuals with names and histories and people who loved them. Will you help me? For the next 3 hours, Lee, BC, Bashir, and Matt collected stories. They interviewed surviving family members, gathered photographs, documented lives. Michael Santos had been studying to become a teacher before losing his job. See continue. Sarah Chen was a grandmother who'd spent her last days comforting frightened children. Marcus Washington wrote poetry about hope despite living in hell. Each name became a person, each statistic became a tragedy. And Matt committed them all to memory with the same discipline he used for legal precedents and case law. Except these weren't abstractions. They were human beings whose deaths he'd been unable to prevent. At 1400 hours, Bashir received the signal from Dax. It was time to return to the 24th century. The temporal window was closing, and they needed to leave before their continued presence risked further timeline damage. What happens to me? Matt asked. You said I can't return to my own time. The chronoton surge that brought you was a one-time event, Bashir confirmed. We don't have the power or technology to recreate it precisely enough to send you back to 2015. You'll have to live through the next 9 years linearly. 9 years. 2024 to 2015, living backward through time he'd already experienced in a different timeline. Matt's mind reeled at the temporal mechanics, the paradoxes, the sheer impossibility of his situation. What do I do? Matt asked. How do I live knowing I've already lived this time? That I'm 9 years displaced from my own present? You do what you've always done, Bashir said. You fight for justice. You defend the innocent. You be the man you've always been, just in a different time. And maybe, just maybe, you use those 9 years to ensure the Bell Riot's promises are kept. Make sure the sanctuary districts are actually dismantled. Make sure these deaths mean something. A mission, Matt said. You're giving me a mission. I'm suggesting a purpose, Bashir corrected. You've been displaced through time and space. You can either view that as tragedy or opportunity. You can spend 9 years grieving what you've lost, or you can use those years to honor what these people died for. Matt considered that. The devil of Hell's Kitchen, stranded 9 years ahead of his own time in a world that had just experienced traumatic awakening. He couldn't practice law. His credentials didn't exist yet in this timeline. He couldn't return to Hell's Kitchen. His past self was already there, creating temporal paradox risks. But he could bear witness. He could ensure the Bell Riots weren't forgotten, weren't reduced to sanitized history that erased the suffering. I'll do it, Matt said. I'll stay. I'll watch the sanctuary districts get dismantled. I'll document what happened here. And in 9 years, when I reach 2015 and catch up to my own timeline, maybe I'll understand why the universe sent me here. Bashir extended his hand. Thank you, counselor, for everything you did these past 4 days. For saving lives when it would have been easier to accept history's verdict. For being the kind of man the Federation needs. Someone who fights for every individual, even when the timeline demands sacrifice. They shook hands, and Matt felt the weight of shared purpose. Two men from different times, different backgrounds, bound by the common mission of defending humanity at its most vulnerable. Tell Commander Cisco something for me, Matt said. Tell him Gabriel Bell's sacrifice won't be forgotten. Tell him the future he's building is worth the price, but only if we remember what that price cost. Only if we honor the people who died by ensuring their deaths create the change they fought for. I'll tell him, Bashir promised. And Murdoch, when you reach 2015 and catch up to your own timeline, when you're back in Hell's Kitchen fighting for the forgotten and the powerless, remember that you've already changed history. You've already proven that one person fighting for justice can save hundreds of lives. That's not a small thing. Bashir left to rendezvous with Dax and Cisco, to return to his own time and his own battles. Matt remained in the Sanctuary District, watching federal authorities begin the slow process of dismantling the camps, processing residents, providing the assistance that should have been available all along. Lee and BC found him at sunset, standing near the memorial wall. What happens now? Lee asked. For you, I mean. You're not from here. We could all tell, the way you talked, the way you moved, like you came from somewhere else. I did, Matt admitted. But I'm here now, and I'm going to stay, at least for a while. Someone needs to document what happened, make sure the Bell Riots are remembered correctly, make sure these 107 names aren't forgotten. And then? BC asked. Then I find my way back to my own time, Matt said, however long that takes. But first, I have work to do, justice to pursue, a promise to keep. They stood together, watching the sun set over the ruins of Sanctuary District A. The riot was over. The standoff had ended. Gabriel Bell was dead, or rather, safely returned to the 24th century with a story to tell about the blind lawyer who'd helped minimize casualties while preserving history. But for Matt Murdoch, the fight was just beginning. 9 years to ensure the Bell Riot's promises were kept. 9 years to honor the dead by preventing their sacrifice from being wasted. 9 years to live through time he'd already experienced, making different choices, fighting different battles, defending the forgotten and the powerless. It was the longest case of his career, and he suspected it would be the most important. As darkness fell over the sanctuary district, Matt's enhanced hearing picked up the sounds of a city beginning to heal. Families reuniting, medical teams treating injured, politicians promising reform, journalists broadcasting stories of the people America had tried to forget. The Bell Riots had shocked the nation's conscience, but Matt Murdock would make sure that shock became lasting change. He would defend the innocent not just for the next 9 years, but for as long as it took to ensure Gabriel Bell's sacrifice and the 107 who died alongside him meant something permanent. Because that's what the devil of Hell's Kitchen did. He fought for justice, even when the system failed. He defended people even when society declared them expendable. He stood for the voiceless, even when standing meant accepting impossible compromises. And if the universe had sent him here, 9 years displaced and 3,000 miles from home, then he'd use every moment to prove that one person fighting for what's right could change history. One case at a time, one life at a time, one day at a time, for as long as it took. 3 months later, December 2024, Matt Murdock stood in the ruins of what had been Sanctuary District A, now being demolished to make way for transitional housing and job training centers. The memorial wall remained, protected by court order, 107 names preserved as permanent reminder of the cost of America's moral awakening. His enhanced senses tracked the construction. Bulldozers clearing debris, engineers surveying foundations, architects planning buildings designed to serve rather than imprison. The sanctuary districts were being dismantled nationwide, exactly as the historical record Cisco had described or predicted. Gabriel Bell's sacrifice had worked, but Matt's mission was far from over. Mr. Murdock? A voice behind him, young, professional, carrying the slight tremor of someone meeting a person whose reputation preceded them. I'm Sarah Kim, congressional aide. Representative Morrison sent me. She'd like to speak with you about your testimony. Matt had spent 3 months documenting the Bell Riots with obsessive thoroughness. He'd interviewed every survivor, collected every photograph, recorded every detail. His legal training made him the perfect witness, credible, precise, and relentless in pursuit of truth. And his blindness made him sympathetic, a victim of circumstance who'd been trapped in the riots and emerged determined to ensure the dead were remembered. The cover story was simple. Matt Murdock, lawyer visiting San Francisco on business, caught in the sanctuary district during the riots, committed to ensuring justice for those who'd suffered. Nobody questioned it. Nobody looked too closely at the blind man with the remarkable memory and the passionate commitment to social reform. Tell the Representative Morrison I'll testify, Matt said. But on one condition. The testimony includes names. All 107, not statistics, people. I want them read into the congressional record. That's a lot of names, Mr. Murdock. It might take 45 minutes, Matt interrupted. I've timed it. 45 minutes to honor the people who died so America would finally pay attention. That's not too much to ask. Sarah Kim's heartbeat jumped, surprise mixed with respect. I'll convey your terms, though I suspect Representative Morrison will agree. Your documentation has been invaluable. The photographs, the interviews, the detailed timeline. It's made it impossible for anyone to minimize what happened. That's the idea, Matt said. History has a way of sanitizing trauma, reducing suffering to abstract policy discussions. I won't let that happen. Not to these people. Not to this moment. After Sarah Kim left, Matt made his way through San Francisco's streets, his radar sense mapping a city transformed by the Bell Riots. Homeless shelters receiving increased funding, employment programs expanding, politicians competing to demonstrate their commitment to social reform, the machinery of government responding to public pressure, slowly and imperfectly, but responding. He'd found an apartment in the Tenderloin district, cheap, accessible, close enough to the former sanctuary district that he could monitor the transition. His law degree didn't exist in this timeline yet, but his skills were transferable. He'd been doing pro bono work, helping former sanctuary residents navigate the bureaucracy of reconstruction, representing them in disputes with landlords and employers who still treated them as second-class citizens. It wasn't Hell's Kitchen. It wasn't his life. But it was purpose. Matt's enhanced hearing picked up a familiar heartbeat approaching. BC, walking with renewed confidence, employment badge from a tech company clipped to his shirt. The Bell Riots had been catastrophic, but they'd also created opportunities. Companies desperate to demonstrate social responsibility, hiring former sanctuary residents, providing job training and support services that hadn't existed before. "Counselor," BC greeted him. "Heading to the memorial?" "Every week," Matt confirmed. "Someone needs to bear witness." They walked together to the memorial wall, where fresh flowers appeared daily. Residents, family members, people who'd survived and wanted to remember those who hadn't. Matt's enhanced touch traced Michael Santos's name, reading the letters through microscopic variations in texture. "His daughter's doing well," BC said quietly. "Lee's been helping raise her. The settlement from the federal lawsuit is funding her education. She'll grow up knowing her father died a hero." "He died because the system failed," Matt corrected. "We can honor his memory, but we can't forget the failure that killed him." "Both can be true," BC said. "He was a hero, and the system failed. The Bell Riots wouldn't mean anything if we only remembered the heroism and forgot the injustice that made heroism necessary." Matt nodded slowly. It was the tension he'd been wrestling with for 3 months. How to honor the dead without sanitizing the circumstances that killed them. How to celebrate Gabriel Bell's sacrifice without excusing the society that required such sacrifice. "I saw Commander Sisko yesterday," Matt said quietly. BC's heartbeat jumped. "What? He's alive? But Bell died. We saw..." "You saw what history needed you to see," Matt said. "Sisko was extracted at the last moment, returned to his own time. He asked me to tell you something. Your actions during the riots, organizing safe zones, helping protect people, they mattered. They saved lives. And he wanted you to know that the future remembers." "The future," BC repeated. "You really believe they were time travelers? That all of this was some predetermined historical event?" "I know it was," Matt said. "I've seen things I can't explain, heard conversations about technology centuries ahead of now. But BC, here's the important part. Even if it was predetermined, even if history demanded those 107 deaths, every life we saved mattered. The timeline might have required sacrifice, but it didn't require accepting every death as inevitable. We fought for every person we could reach. That's what matters." BC was silent for a long moment. "You're not planning to stay, are you? After the hearings, after the testimony, you're going to leave." "Eventually," Matt admitted. "I have 9 years to get back to my own time, to the place where I belong. But first, I'm going to make sure the Bell Riots accomplish what they were supposed to accomplish. I'm going to hold politicians accountable to their promises. I'm going to ensure the sanctuary districts stay dismantled. And I'm going to keep these names alive, make sure they're more than entries on a memorial wall. You're talking about years of work, BC said. I've got 9 years to spare, Matt replied. And I owe it to everyone who died. To Michael Santos and Sarah Chen and Marcus Washington and 104 others. They died for a better future. The least I can do is help build it. Over the following months, Matt became a fixture in congressional hearings, policy discussions, and activist movements. The blind lawyer who'd survived the Bell riots and dedicated himself to ensuring their legacy wasn't wasted. He testified before Congress, his enhanced memory providing devastating detail about the conditions in sanctuary districts. He consulted on legislation, his legal expertise helping craft laws that would prevent similar failures. And he documented everything. Photographs, interviews, legal briefs, testimony transcripts. All carefully archived, all meticulously organized. When he finally returned to 2015 in his own timeline, he'd carry this knowledge with him. He'd remember what humanity was capable of, both the cruelty that created the sanctuary districts and the compassion that finally dismantled them. But there were darker moments too. Nights when the Catholic guilt overwhelmed him, when he replayed every death he couldn't prevent, every person he'd failed to save. The young mother who'd bled out despite Bashir's efforts. The elderly man whose heart had given out. The resident shot by security because Matt had been helping someone else and couldn't intervene in time. 107 names, 107 failures, 107 souls he'd been unable to defend despite his best efforts. On those nights, Matt prayed. Not for forgiveness, he didn't deserve it, but for the strength to continue, to honor the dead through action rather than grief, to transform survivors' guilt into motivation for change. You can't save everyone, Lee told him one evening, finding him at the memorial wall long after sunset. Even the devil of Hell's Kitchen has limits. Matt smiled at the nickname. Word of his nighttime activities had spread among former sanctuary residents. He still wore the mask occasionally, still intervened when he sensed injustice. Old habits died hard. I know I can't save everyone, Matt said. But that doesn't mean I stop trying. Every person I save is one less name on a wall like this. Every injustice I prevent is one less family destroyed. That has to be enough. Is it? Lee asked. Enough for you, I mean. Can you live with a compromise? I don't have a choice, Matt said. The universe put me here, 9 years displaced, 3,000 miles from home. I can either spend those years in grief, or I can use them to honor the people who died. I choose honor. Lee's hand found his shoulder. Then you're a better person than most. But Murdoch, promise me something. When you get back to your own time, when you return to Hell's Kitchen and your own battles, don't forget to forgive yourself. You did everything possible. You saved hundreds of lives. That has to count for something. It does, Matt said. But so do the 107 I couldn't save. Both truths exist simultaneously. I'm learning to live with that tension. By 2028, 4 years after the riots, the Sanctuary District program had been completely dismantled. Federal legislation guaranteed housing assistance, job training, and mental health services. The Bell riots had catalyzed the most significant social reform since the New Deal, transforming American safety net programs in ways that would have seemed impossible before September 2024. Matt watched it happen with bittersweet satisfaction. The change was real. He could measure it in reduced homelessness statistics, increased employment, expanded social services. Gabriel Bell's sacrifice had purchased something tangible, something lasting. but it had taken 107 deaths to convince America to care about its most vulnerable citizens. That price, that horrible, necessary price, would haunt Matt Murdock for the rest of his life. By 2032, 8 years displaced, Matt had documented enough to fill a small library. Congressional testimony, policy analysis, survivor interviews, photographs of the memorial wall. Everything carefully preserved, everything waiting for the moment he'd return to 2015 and his own timeline. He'd also been tracking himself, or rather, the version of himself that existed in this timeline. Matt Murdock was in law school in 2032, studying at Columbia, not yet the devil of Hell's Kitchen, but on the path that would lead there. Matt carefully avoided any contact, any possibility of temporal paradox. He couldn't risk meeting himself, couldn't risk altering his own past. But he watched from a distance, tracking the younger man's progress with paternal concern. Would this version of himself make the same choices, take the same risks, become the same defender of the forgotten? Matt suspected he would. Some things were inevitable, not because history demanded them, but because they were expressions of fundamental character. The younger Matt Murdock would become a lawyer who fought for the powerless because that's who he was at his core. Time displacement couldn't change that. By 2033, 9 years had passed. Matt stood in his apartment on the anniversary of the Bell Riots, surrounded by documentation of nearly a decade's work. Tomorrow, he'd return to Hell's Kitchen. Tomorrow, he'd catch up to his own timeline. Tomorrow, he'd be home. But tonight, he stood at the memorial wall one final time, his enhanced touch tracing the 107 names he'd committed to memory. "I kept my promise," Matt said quietly. "The sanctuary districts are gone. The reforms are real. Your deaths meant something. I made sure of it." The wind carried sounds of the city around him, a city transformed by tragedy into something better, not perfect. Human society never achieved perfection, but better, more just, more compassionate, more willing to see the invisible and defend the vulnerable. Gabriel Bell's sacrifice had purchased that change, and Matt Murdock had spent 9 years ensuring the purchase wasn't wasted. "Rest in peace," Matt whispered. "All of you. Your names will be remembered. Your sacrifice will be honored. And the future you died for, it's coming. Slowly, imperfectly, but coming. I promise." He turned away from the memorial wall and began the long journey home. Back to Hell's Kitchen. Back to his own time. Back to the life he'd been displaced from 9 years ago. But he'd returned changed. He'd seen humanity at its worst and its best. He'd witnessed the price of systemic failure and the cost of moral awakening. He'd learned that defending the innocent sometimes meant accepting compromise, that justice sometimes required allowing injustice, that the needs of the many could genuinely outweigh the needs of the few. The devil of Hell's Kitchen had been tempered in the fires of the Bell Riots. And when he returned to his own time, he'd carry those lessons with him, along with 107 names that would never fade from memory. Matt Murdock returned to Hell's Kitchen in 2015, stepping back into his own timeline after 9 years of displacement. The city felt simultaneously familiar and alien. The same streets he'd walked for years, but now carrying the weight of knowing what was coming. In 9 years, the sanctuary districts would rise. In 9 years, 107 people would die. In 9 years, humanity would face its conscience and be found wanting. But he also knew humanity would respond, would change, would grow. The future Commander Sisko represented, the Federation, the post-scarcity utopia, humanity reaching the stars, it was real. Matt had seen the first steps toward that future being built on the foundation of the Bell Riots' terrible sacrifice. He resumed his life as defense attorney by day, vigilante by night, fighting for the forgotten in Hell's Kitchen streets and courtrooms, defending people the system had declared expendable, standing for the voiceless when standing meant facing impossible odds. But something had changed. Matt Murdock had always fought with passionate intensity, driven by Catholic guilt and moral certainty. Now, he fought with hard-won wisdom, understanding that justice was rarely clean, that defending the innocent sometimes meant accepting compromise, that the law was a tool that could serve or oppress, depending on who wielded it. He kept the documentation from the Bell Riots in a secure location, congressional testimony, survivor interviews, photographs of the memorial wall, 107 names carefully preserved. When September 2024 arrived again in the natural timeline, when the riots unfolded as history demanded, Matt would be ready. He couldn't prevent them. The timeline required that awakening. But he could bear witness. He could ensure the names were remembered. He could honor the sacrifice by making sure it led to lasting change. And on quiet nights, when the Catholic guilt threatened to overwhelm him, when he replayed every death he couldn't prevent during those 4 days in September 2024, Matt Murdock returned to the one truth that allowed him to continue. He had defended the innocent. Within impossible constraints, serving history's cruel demands, he had fought for every single life. Some he'd saved, some he'd lost, but he'd fought for all of them with everything he had. That had to be enough, because in the end, that's all any defender could offer. Not victory, but effort. Not perfection, but integrity. Not the ability to save everyone, but the commitment to try. The devil of Hell's Kitchen had traveled through time, witnessed humanity's darkest hour, and helped birth its brightest future. Now he stood in his own present, ready to continue the fight that would never truly end. Defending the forgotten, protecting the vulnerable, and proving that every human life, no matter how invisible society tried to make them, had intrinsic value worth fighting for. One case at a time, one person at a time, one day at a time, to boldly go where no one had gone before.